Hi guys, welcome back. Thanks for tuning into the channel again. Got a good review for you today. Something that really surprised me. It's a new atomizer, dripping atomizer out that has been getting a lot of popularity in the last couple of months. At least the first one was. The new one's out, the version 2, and it's none other than the Infinite Clt version 2. And this thing is badass, man. I am loving it. I am loving the drip tip. I'm loving the airflow options. I'm loving the fact that it has side airflow going underneath the post, just like with the plume veil. I'm really loving everything about this atomizer. As you can see, it's got the center block, just like the plume veil and Helios, and it doesn't have the world's deepest juice well, but what it does have is it has these long, goofy wicks, as you can see. And the reason why it has that is because of where the air slots are positioned. When I put my top cap down, it's actually sitting flush or sitting even with the airflow hole, so you really can't have the coil too low, or you won't be able to maximize the vapor potential and the flavor potential. But this thing hits like a beast. I've got it on the Clt2 100-watt box mod. I am going at 4.5 volts right now. It's at 70 watts on a 0.3 ohm build. Let's take a pull. And it puts out really nicely. In fact, this is my favorite atomizer for the 100-watt box mod. Certain atomizers work well at 50 watts. Certain atomizers work great at 30 watts. Well, this one works well at 100 watts, and there's not a lot that do, in my opinion. The plume veil works great. The toe works great. The CCI Militia works alright. My Veritas is terrible on it. The Still Air was okay, but this thing is perfect. And it's got all kinds of airflow options on this thing. You can go use one hole, or you can just use full-on slot mode, where it's quite an airy draw. We'll take a look in the close-up in a minute. But this thing, it's great. You can drip right through the drip tip with this thing, so you really don't have to worry about pulling the top cap off. I'm vaping on some Smurf from Vaporgate. Thank you, Yosh, for sending me some tasty, tasty juice. Some of the best fruit-flavored juice I've had in a long time. But it's nice. It's kind of got the some original to Infinite products, at least, since they only have one other one, the Clt2. The bottom kind of Vulcan-style heatsink fin. They used to just have the top one, and the old one came with a smaller drip tip with some matching heatsink fins right around the base. But I just love the look of this thing. It's a little tall. It doesn't really look all that good on a mod to me, on a mechanical mod, but on a box mod, this thing is freaking amazing. It looks good. It's clean all the way around it, and the best part about this thing is it doesn't leak like the plume veil does. Anyone who's got a 100-watt box mod and a plume veil, if you have all those airflow options open, this side hole here inevitably spews out juice, especially if you do this, where you blow out to kind of get your coil jump started. You can't really do that without getting juice all over your box. This one stays bone dry around it here and underneath it, which you know, it kind of makes me nervous when you get a box mod and there's juice all over it, and the internals, you know, there's a chip in there. You don't want to really jeopardize your box over an atomizer. So if you're like me and you're kind of OCD and you don't like juice all over your top of your box here or under your atomizer, this is the perfect atomizer for it. It works great at 50 watts. It works even better at 100. As you can see, there is no juice on there. It is dry as can be. The bottom of this is dry as well. I haven't had any leaking out of this thing. I really wasn't too impressed with the Clt version 1. I've played with them. They're cool. Don't get me wrong. I know a lot of people that love them and swear by them. But to me, this just looks so much better and works so much better than the Clt version 1. Not only do they give you this big wide bore drip tip that comes with it, and as you can see, that bad boy is big, and it's got 2 O-rings. I've already snapped one of them, but they gave me a whole bag of O-rings, so it wasn't a big deal. But they also gave me a Delrin drip tip to go along with it. If you have a 100-watt build in here and you're worried about heat on your, on your mouth from firing it at 100 watts, this will do away with almost all the heat. And it dumps out. I'm only at 70 watts right now. I'll take it up to 100 watts for you. I may need to drip a little bit, but that's not a big deal, since you can go right into the drip tip. And the best part about this thing is it holds quite a bit of e-liquid. I can fit about 15 drops of e-liquid in here without it causing any juice splatter on the throat. And with a monster-sized drip tip like this, you inevitably will get some juice splatter at 100 watts. So let's take it up. Right now, we are at 100 watts, as you can see. And let's go for it. It's one of the only atomizers I can get pumping at 5.5 volts at 100 watts and take a long, satisfying pull on. With my Plume Veil and the same build range, I can only get about a 2.5 second pull before the heat is just too much. It's got a real big chamber. As you can see, the top cap is pretty deep. It's a tall atomizer for sure. In fact, even if you were not to include the bottom heatsink fin part, it's still tall. It's probably 15 to 20% taller than most. So you have a tall chamber to deal with, which works really well at 100 watts. I personally prefer the stainless steel drip tip. I think it looks a little better, and it doesn't get hot. I have it open with 2 little air holes being used. I don't use the slot. It's just too airy for me. And one thing that really surprised me with this atomizer is the flavor. I expected it to be a cloud chasing atomizer, and just clouds, no flavor. I think this beats the Plume Veil in flavor by a good bit, especially with fruit juices. To me, cloud chasing builds, they're just... The Plume Veil had good flavor, don't get me wrong, but when I'm going low on builds, there's just something lost in the translation, if you will. But not with this thing. The flavor stays intact, it stays on point. In fact, most of the time if I run a juice at 4 volts, I get the best flavor, true flavor. In a lot of atomizers, when you go above 5 volts on a box mod, the juice just turns into this syrupy, gooey, like caramelized flavor, and it just goes to shit. This atomizer, it does not. It holds up really, really well. It doesn't whistle. It doesn't have any annoying quirks. The O-ring tolerances are perfect. You can put it on, you can take it off, you can pull it on, no problems. You don't have a ton to line up like with the Plume Veil. I felt like with the Plume Veil, I was always sitting there and turning things and screwing with things. If that annoyed you about the Plume Veil and you liked the Plume Veil's airflow options, you will love the Clt2. It is, I got it up here at Vape Parkway in Atlanta where I work. We sell them for $41.99, so $42. It is an authentic atomizer. It's worth it to me. We sell the Plume Veil clone from Infinite for $31.99, so it's $10 more than the Plume Veil, but you're getting that extra $10 worth. You really are. With the Plume Veil, it didn't come with a drip tip, at least the Infinite version doesn't. And it's a little tight, the O-ring tolerance. And I've got the newer Plume Veil too with the new logo. And to me, this just smokes the Plume Veil. I keep saying Plume Veil, Plume Veil, Plume Veil. But up until this point, the Taube and the Plume Veil were my favorite for cloud chasing. for high wattage devices, if you will. Not anymore. The Clt2 has taken the crown. Is this my favorite atomizer? Probably not. It's probably my second or third favorite. Overall, my favorite atomizer is still the Veritas. Why do I love that thing so much? I don't know. It just matches my style of vaping. The flavor I get off that is a little bit better than this. Just a little bit though, not much. And you can really close this thing off. You can get it down to where you are using just a single air hole on this, which I will now show you. As you can see, I just have a little tiny airflow hole on there. And you know, just for shits and giggles, I will go full bore on it for you and open up the slats and take a pull at 100 watts. But the flavor, it's just not as good like that. But let's do it up. Flavor just disappeared. You really got to close this thing off to get spot on flavor to the Veritas, and you can almost get there with it. But you can't get the vapor in the Veritas that you can with this. But I just think this thing looks sexy as hell. We're going to take a dive down and take a close-up look at this. Alright guys, welcome back to the close-ups. We'll start off with the deck. Alright, so as you see here where my thumb is, you've got the plume veil style side airflow holes, and stop focusing. And this is what I believe to give it some of the best flavor. I really think this atomizer has a lot of the best options of all the atomizers out right now. It's got the center block like a plume veil. It's got the side airflow options like a plume veil. However, one thing this has that the plume veil does not is the Vulcan style heatsink fins along the bottom. Kind of like a Tobe, but on the bottom. The Vulcan has that. The Vulcan is a very nice atomizer, don't get me wrong, but it does not have the airflow that this does. As you can see, the wicks sit up pretty high, and you pretty much have to do that. I'm going to try messing around with a vertical coil and see if I can't get some better results, because I think with a vertical coil you could really cram a lot of cotton down in that well and get a whole lot of juice stored down in there. But as you can see, it's pretty standard in a lot of ways. The bottom, it's got an adjustable pin. I've got number 1319. Here is the barrel that it comes with. Nothing too fancy as far as logos go, but it looks nice. It looks nice and clean. As you can see, the inside, it's got two little lips to help it catch and prevent juice from leaking. Here are the two drip tips that it comes with, and these things are monsters like I showed before. I mean, they are huge. You can easily drip in there. It doesn't stick to the side. If you get some on the side, it just drips right down below. But the magic of this thing, to me, are the airflow options on this. Sorry about the autofocus, guys. I've got to get a real camera and stop using my iPad for this. But as you can see, it's got this conical top cap design shape, more so than almost any atomizer out there. It's a little bit sharper of a conical design, and I think that's why it's got such good flavor. It's real tall, but that's got to be what's giving it the Veritas style flavor. Two O-rings. They gave me a spare bag with several O-rings. Like I said, I already snapped one off the drip tip, but fortunately they give me plenty. But with that said, hopefully I won't need any more of them. I snapped one within the first hour of playing with this thing, and hopefully I won't run out of them, but I do have extras, fortunately. To me, this thing has taken the most popular features out of some of the most popular atomizers out, like the Plume Veil, the Helios, the Tobe, the Vulcan, and combined them all. Kind of like their first one was a combination of the Tobe, Helios, and Still Air. This one really goes beyond that. If you can't tell, I lost one of my original screws. My biggest complaint with this, no screws in the bag. Not a deal breaker by any means, but definitely annoying. Anyway, that's what she looks like. Pretty sweet, actually. Let me put her back together so you guys can get a idea of what she looks like up close with what it will look like on top of your box mod or mod. It's got a real clean look to it. Real nice machining. I think nicer than the first version, personally. But it's really slick. I love the adjustable pin, and I love the drip tip, and I love how it stays cool. My box never gets hot underneath, and it doesn't leak, which is a huge bonus for me. Alright, we're going to take a dive back to FaceTime and say a few final words. Alright guys, welcome back. One thing I wanted to mention, one of the benefits of having the coil that high up in the air with the wick like that is the way the air flows when you fire it. Check this out. It just spews it out the sides. It's still at 100 watts. I'm going to dial it back to what I prefer it at, which is about 75-ish. That's at 4.7 volts. Plenty for me. Plenty for really anyone. I really don't think people need 100 watts, and I definitely don't think people need 150. Doesn't mean I'm not going to get one. It's nice to have it and not need it, of course. But Clt version 2, man, it is a keeper. It is going to stay on this box. Probably will not put the plume veil back on here. I was mainly using the plume veil and my Tobe and my tugboat on here before, but this thing just works perfect. The fact that I can drip through the top and not have a mess all over here is just really nice. And the flavor, my personal favorite setting, like I said before, are the 2 air holes right there with the side engaged. It doesn't have the top air holes like the plume, but I didn't think they worked all that great anyway. I think it was more of a gimmick. It was nice to have a Delrin chamber to raise and lower to either give more vapor or more flavor, but with the way this is engineered and designed, it really gives you the best of both worlds. Let's take a pull, say adios, and hopefully you learned something and enjoyed the review. The flavor. I give this just a 9.5 out of 10 for flavor. The Veritas to me is probably about a 9.8. This is so close to that. So freaking close. And this puts out maybe twice the amount of vapor with ease too. A lot of people you'll see going. You don't need to do that with this one. You just don't. You can just straight inhale it. 100 watts, yeah, I could see some people still wanting to do it, but you don't need to do it. I can blow huge clouds without the startup blow through that you see, like I just did this. You don't need to do that with this. I mean, even at 75 watts, I can blow huge, huge clouds. In fact, I'll put it back on 65 watts, and I'll take a nice, long, satisfying drag and show you what kind of vapor I'm working with there. It's nice, guys. It's a keeper. Clt version 2 from Infinite, guys. Worth the $41.99 in my opinion. Thanks for watching. Link be down below to where I got it. Thanks for tuning in.